I thought that Tim's presentation of what David said was right, and I made the following analogy which David said seemed to endorse. So suppose when you enter into rational deliberation, it's sort of pragmatically contradictory not to think of yourself as an agent whose deliberations make a difference to your actions, right? It doesn't follow, of course, that you are an agent whose deliberations really do make a difference to your actions. It's just there's no consistent position to take up in relation to your own thought and the world in which you engage in deliberating while simultaneously believing that your deliberations are not actually going to result in your actions, right? So it's like that with the I'm not a Boltzmann brain. It's just there's no coherent position I can take up that allows me to engage in the practice of gathering evidence and making inferences,
And
that allows me to also think I'm a Boltzmann brain.
And the physical picture you get now finds a place for you to not be a Boltzmann, where you might be, in the way you are in this, as not as a
So in
Boltzmann
that
brain.
sense, you can say, well, I'll just, in that case, the content of this is to assume that I'm back in the
Right,
world.
now the
I'm
worry,
beginning
now
to-
somebody says to you, oh, but look, there are so many more Boltzmann brains in your whole big picture. Isn't it more likely you're really one of them? And then the reply is to go through what you just said at the beginning, I think. So this was an argument, right, that the Boltzmann brain problem isn't the problem for David's picture.
It's just a problem with that last part, that at the end of the day, when you've got everything that you've got to have, that you're going to recover it from fundamental physics. As long as, unless someone thinks
I'm not sure
that
what
could be-
recover means. If recover means a proof of fundamental physics, which has the theorem, I am not a Boltzmann brain, no, you're not going to get
Yeah,
that.
but that was the game in Time and Chance, right? The game was
See that?
I write down the Hamiltonian, the dynamics, the past hypothesis, and prob, and I get everything.
No, a lot of things happen you can't get from that.
And I get that from what the presently surveyable macro condition. Talking about that, yeah.
No, a lot of things will have happened.
Such as what?
Well, I don't know, things that happen, little events chancy events that occurred yesterday.
But you get
Right,
everything
those
that you
are-
actually know.
Right, I can recover everything that I think I know from that. But now I think I know
No,
something.
you can't recover they say things from that.
What's
Sometimes you don't have the language for it.
For example, what?
That I am sitting in such and such a location.
That's in the surveyable macro. Well, I mean,
It's not in the language of physics. Or I was in.
yeah, I mean, okay.
So I don't see that. I think it's rather that what you get out of it is that your records are by and large reliable. Your decisions influence the future, but not the past.
All those basic things that you used to think you could get out of fundamental physics, now you can't. I guess that's.
But you won't get that, I mean,
When
unless
you
you solve this problem, you won't get that either.
Right.
It's not just the day say stuff.
Yeah.
But you're adding. So what this brings up is that you have to add to assumptions. You have to add not just the
Yes.
past hypothesis, but it was not so long ago.
Right.
And that's
Right.
they
But from
say.
that you
Right.
And that's not fundamental
And
physics.
that's,
Right.
yeah.
Yes. Okay. That's right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the point.
Right. And so then, okay. So then there was no
I
disagreement.
mean,
So there used to be a basic package that got you all that kind of stuff, which was basic physics. Now there isn't.
There may be,
Yeah.
although probably if you look at the way David describes the past hypothesis, it's built into the way
it
it's
might be in
described.
Mexico.
Because I think the past hypothesis is that the universe started 13.5 billion years
such and
ago
such a
in
state,
approximately the state that we think it started. I mean, that's actually literally the way it's stated.
Yeah, but that's.
In which case, then that
Yeah.
locates you.
But then that's.
That's a law
That's-
that only
that's
holds in the
not a
first
law.
13
Oh,
billion
okay.
years, right?
Right.
It's a law that only lasts for.
I never thought it was a law anyway.
approximation.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
It's a really short law.
But so that's a different part of the argument. Okay. But now, so the question is, how damaging is that to this
I don't think it's damaging in the
So-
sense that it gives rise to skepticism for me or something like that. I think it's damaging in the sense that it in terms of, for example, some of the arguments we were having last year about whether, say, fundamentalism is, believing in fundamentalism commits you to thinking this project's gotta go. I think, well, okay, it doesn't sound like fundamentalism to me anymore if now we get to throw things into the package that aren't fundamental physics.
But I'm surprised that you always, this problem has been always there. no?
Sure, of course.
As soon as you have a dynamical system, it's just a trivial consequence of having a dynamical system that you get all these recurrence
Sure.
in all these structures.
So, Eric, I think it's-
So it was clear that physics is not, it's not just, you need something more, but
So,
you have to look
I
at
got
it.
the- I got the
yourself.
idea.
I just want to say something about Eric. I mean, I think I never said anything like that. I
No,
can't possibly
okay.
believe that fundamentalism requires this. This whole story was a way of pursuing the idea that fundamental physics can give an explanation. And, of course, it's not that just the laws of fundamental physics can give an explanation of everything. You need initial conditions also. So that characterization just,
No, okay.
okay, don't accept. There is this though, the idea that special science regularities that we think of as lawful can be accounted for in terms of this probability structure. And this I don't see that you've shown.
I guess the sort of dialectic I had in mind, maybe I just could try to say what I thought I was trying to characterize. Dialectic goes something like this, right, where, the proposal's made, people say, okay, well, what about this problem with it? And then the reply is, well, okay, but then what? If that's the problem, how do you fix it? And then the reply is, well, I don't know, maybe this whole way of doing things, isn't right. And then I thought the reply was, but it has to be, because that's what fundamentalism commits us to. It commits us to that we have to be able to recover all of these kinds of facts, like that our records are reliable. That has to be able, if you aren't able to recover that from fundamental physics, then in some sense, Nancy Cartwright wins or whatever, right? But it seems to me now, look, it looks like, no, you can't do that. You can't recover the reliability. I mean, if this little Boltzmann brain argument is right as far as it goes, it looks like you can't recover the reliability of our records from anything like a plausible set of fundamental laws. And that seems to me, I mean, not to give rise to some kind of, doesn't make me worry that I'm Boltzmann brain, of course, right? But it makes me think, okay, maybe that story wasn't exactly right.
May I ask another question? What's wrong in having a transcendental argument to, you say something like that, that it's problematic or?
It's just problematic in the sense that you're saying I'm forming some beliefs which don't have a straightforward empirical justification. It's a different kind of justification.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
that's
it's one that makes us,
Yeah, sure.
I think we're in that situation. I don't think we're ever going to get out of that
Okay,
situation,
okay,
right?
okay, then-
But that doesn't keep me from recognizing that it's a slightly uncomfortable situation.
No, but
That's
since,
right.
I mean, for me, it's been always like that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
always thought it was this transcendental element. And when Shelley said that it's a primitive ontology argument, it's because we think of a primitive ontology as having also this transcendental aspect. Is a location of ourselves in the picture, in the structure provided by physics.
I guess the translation of this into a thing about primitive ontology, I think, is very forced and unhelpful, because the Boltzmann brains are made out of the same stuff that our brains are made out of. And if this were a little tiny fluctuation in the midst of chaos, all the primitive ontology in that little fluctuation would be the same. So,
No, a primitive ontology in the sense with respect to time. That means I have this picture of all this developing of a world with something happening near the beginning and then again something repeating. The reason that time is privileged, I mean, that the theory is meaningful to us, it provides an explanation, is as the same, that location, to locate ourselves there, is in the same spirit of the primitive ontology and the manifest image that we were talking yesterday. It means, again, is something that makes understandable, makes to me the word understandable. Otherwise will not be understood. In that spirit, there is
I think I agree with, now I agree more with Barry than, if I think in terms of a framework where we have some sort of a finite universe, so we have Poincare recurrence and all of that, and but Boltzmann entertained the possibility of fluctuation, I thought, we said, no, Boltzmann was wrong. There was a low entropy initial condition, there was past hypothesis. Part and parcel of that is that we're in the past, that we're in the initial phase, because these fluctuations were there, they had to be there in Boltzmann's argument. So the only content is to invoking a past hypothesis is part and parcel with that is that we're in the segment of the past hypothesis.
Can I include David in? It'd be interesting what he says here.
People have been trying to do that for years.
Here's the discussion that we got into, starting with the discussion that just Eric and I were having.